So you want to know how to get out of a traffic ticket. Okay, in today's video, I'm going to provide you with tips and information about how not to get a ticket in the first place, but if you do get one, how to get out of it and maximize your chances of getting your ticket dismissed in traffic court. My name is Mehdi Charkawi. I'm a civil litigation attorney in Houston, Texas. My channel provides general legal and litigation information to the public. If you like this kind of content, I ask you to subscribe. And if you like this video, hit the thumbs up button so others can benefit from it. Let's get on with it. Okay, so before we get started, remember, this is not legal advice and I'm not your attorney. If you have a situation that requires legal attention, I ask you to seek counsel in your local city or state. So most of us can agree that the most common traffic violation is a speeding ticket. So what you want to do when you're driving down the highway or on the street is scan the road for the presence of any police car, squad car in the traffic or parked on the left or the right shoulder. This will give you an advantage just in the event that you do go over the speed limit. At least you know that you're not committing a violation in the presence of a police officer. So what I do when I'm driving is I'm always scanning the road, trying to see if I can spot a police officer in my vicinity. Now, police officers or police cars, they used to have their warning and emergency lights on the roof of the car. These days, those emergency lights are being installed inside the car, making it more difficult for you to spot a police car. What they're also doing, most police departments around the country, is that they are writing the lettering on the car that says police or the name of the city or the county. They are making those letterings in the same color as the color of the car. So it's monochromatic. This helps camouflage the car and it makes it more difficult for the public to spot and recognize the presence of a squad car in the vicinity. To help you do this, you want to be familiar with the type of makes and models that police departments typically use for their squad cars. In Houston, for example, and I think this is true for the rest of the country, the most common makes and models of vehicles that police departments use are Chevrolet Tahoe, Chevrolet Impala, Chevrolet Camaro, and Ford Taurus and Ford Explorer. So if you know what these vehicles look like and you're familiar with them, it'll make it a lot easier for you to spot whether a police car is in your vicinity before you exceed the speed limit. Okay, so let's see you were very careful, you were very vigilant, and you scanned the road and you saw what's around you and you couldn't see a police car and you still got pulled over. As soon as you see those emergency lights in your rear view mirror, you want to pull over as soon as possible. Typically within the first 10 to 15 seconds. You want to do so quickly, but also do it safely. You don't want to endanger yourself or endanger your surroundings. Sometimes the police officer is going to use its speakerphone from the car to give you instructions on where to park and when to pull over. So make sure your radio or your music is not loud. Once you see those lights, turn down the volume and listen for any instructions that are coming out from the loudspeaker of the squad car. So it is very important, as soon as you get pulled over, not to make any sudden moves, not to cause the car to be moving up and down, indicating that you are trying to do something inside the car. The police officer, as soon as they pull you over, they're going to be looking and watching your actions. So you want to make sure you remain calm and not make any sudden moves. That's going to make the police officer suspicious that you are trying to reach for a weapon or you're trying to get rid of evidence like dumping drugs or alcohol or whatever the situation may be. When the police officer approaches your window, again, you want to keep your hands on the wheel, be calm and be compliant. Please be compliant and listen to the instructions. Don't be nervous and follow the instructions of what the police officer is telling you. Now, if you are carrying a weapon on your person or in the car lawfully, so what you want to do is tell the police officer the following. Mr. Officer, I am carrying a weapon on me or it's in the glove box. What would you like me to do? At this point, you are alerting the police officer that there is a weapon and that you are lawfully carrying it. And then he's going to tell you what to do at that point. So you can put him at ease and tell him that you are looking to comply with his instructions and listen for what the police officer is going to tell you what to do once you have alerted him that there is a weapon in the car. And again, I cannot stress this enough. Comply, comply, comply. Although you may feel that you were pulled over wrongfully and you did not commit the violation that the police officer is alleging you committed, stay calm. The time to fight your ticket is not at the time when you're being pulled over. Remember that. The time to fight your ticket is in court. So you want to make this interaction with the police officer as short as possible, as calm as possible, and as peaceful as possible. Your goal is to make sure that the police officer writes you a ticket and sends you on your way without him remembering you, or without you doing anything that would make you stick in his memory, and he would remember you later on when if there is a court hearing. Now, let me make something clear. I happen to believe that the overwhelming majority of police officers are decent human beings that are trying to do their job and go back to their wives and kids alive and without any danger or without any threat to their life or to their safety. That's the majority, the overwhelming majority of police officers. Now, just like every profession and for most human beings, there's going to be that small, that tiny minority of individuals that are a bad apple, if you will. You're going to have police officers are prejudiced, maybe even racist. And this goes back to the compliance issue. If you are compliant, then you're likely to go through this interaction very safely without any problems. If you're not compliant, if you are belligerent or rude or refuse to obey the instructions, then you are literally given a reason, an incentive, and a possible motive for this prejudiced police officer to act upon his prejudice and perhaps cause you harm or harass you, or maybe in some rare instances use his weapon against you. So the best thing you can do during a traffic stop is to simply comply with instructions. Now, what can an officer do during the traffic stop? The officer can ask you to get out of the car. That's within his purview. The officer can ask you for identification if he has probable cause. Now, again, assuming that the stop was lawful and there was probable cause of a violation, then the police officer has the right to see your ID, and he may also ask you to exit the vehicle. What the police officer does not have the right to do is search your car without probable cause. So what is probable cause that goes beyond the traffic violation? Let's say he smells a heavy smell of weed, of any kind of narcotics. Maybe he observes narcotics in the car. Maybe he observes an open container of alcohol in the car. At that moment, he has met his burden to be able to search your car. Other than that, if he asks you, can I search your car? Simply say no. Now, you have two options during the traffic stop on how you could act. The first option is to perhaps be nice, to be compliant. You don't have to admit. I would suggest don't admit to anything. But at the same time, you can apologize and ask if the police officer would let you off with a warning. Sometimes when the police officer sees that you're compliant, you're nice, he runs your driver's license, there are no warrants for your arrest, the violation is to an extent minor, the police officer may just give you a warning and let you go on your way. That's the first option that you have. The second option, which is the one I recommend, is to just remain calm and follow instructions. Don't answer any questions that you don't feel comfortable answering, and deny any kind of wrongdoing. For example, the police officer may knock at your window and say, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" The answer should always be, "No, I do not." Or, for example, "Do you know that you were speeding going 90 miles an hour in a 65 mile per hour zone?" The answer is going to be, "No, I did not." Any further questions after that, and you say, "Mr. Officer, I respectfully invoke my Fifth Amendment right." The officer at that point is not going to ask you any more questions. He's just going to write his ticket and give it to you. I also suggest to sign the ticket. If the police officer asks you to sign the ticket, go ahead and sign it. It doesn't mean that you are admitting to guilt. It doesn't mean that you are conceding that you have committed this violation. All it means is that you will be showing up, or you understand that you received a citation and that you have a court date on a particular day that shows up on the ticket. That's all it means. So don't make a big deal out of the signature. Sign your ticket and then go on with your life and hope that the police officer is not going to remember you, and I'll explain why a little bit later. And also hope that the interaction was short, brief, and peaceful, and nobody got hurt. Okay, so you received your ticket, and in the ticket there's a court date. Now, one thing I want to advise you is to review the information in the ticket. A few years ago, police officers used to handwrite the ticket, and that gave more of a chance for the ticket to have erroneous information. For example, your wrong birth date, or your wrong driver's license number, or the wrong make and model of your vehicle. Any information that's in your ticket that is not true and accurate is a basis for the ticket to be dismissed. You want to make note of the information that is not correct and bring it up to the judge in court. These days, the majority of times, I have seen police officers now they have a printer either on them or in the car, and they have a computer where they input all the information, they scan your driver's license, and that's how the information that's in your driver's license is auto-populated into the ticket. So the chances of the police officer making a mistake in the ticket is now less likely, but I would still recommend that you review the ticket before you go to court. So when you're given a court date in the traffic ticket, your goal is going to be to delay the trial on the ticket as much as possible. And it starts with the first court date. The first court date is an arraignment date, which means you show up in front of the judge to plead guilty or not guilty. That's not your trial yet. That's just an arraignment. So what I suggest every time, this is assuming you have delayed the date of the arraignment. So as soon as you get the ticket, pick up the phone, call the court, and ask for a postponement of that date. Ask the court, what's the longest I can delay my court date? And once you get a new court date, I would wait until a week before that new court date and ask the clerk again. Pick up the phone, call the clerk of the court, and ask yet again for another postponement. And I'll explain why again a little bit shortly. You continue to postpone and delay the court date as much as possible until you can no longer delay. And then you show up on that particular court date that the clerk has given you after he has indicated that he can no longer give you another date. So you show up, and when it's your turn, you want to make sure you're dressed nicely in a business suit, a business shirt, a tie preferably. Look nice and be very courteous with the judge. When your turn comes up, you plead not guilty and you ask for a jury trial. You ask for a jury trial because it's going to take a lot longer to get you a jury trial than it would getting you a judge trial. If you don't ask for a jury trial, your trial is going to be set within probably the next 30 days or less, and you're going to go in front of the judge, and the judge is going to determine whether you were guilty or not. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure you delay this case as much as possible. So you ask for a jury trial. After you get a jury trial, you're going to get a notice from the clerk with your name on it, the citation, the case number, and the new date for the jury trial. And you repeat the same thing that you've done with your arraignment date. You continue to call the clerk and ask for postponement. Whether it's allowed to do it over the phone or you have to show up in person, find out from the clerk what's the proper procedure to postpone and delay and get a court date basically. And keep asking for new court dates as often as you can until you cannot get another court date again. Now here's why you are delaying and postponing the court date. Remember, the state's case against you is only as good as the witness that they have that has witnessed the violation, and that witness is the police officer. So the longer you postpone your court date, the more likely that the police officer either is not going to remember you, is not going to show up, is going to have other obligations that he needs to attend, he may be transferred, and on and on and on. There are many reasons why the police officer, after let's say a year of delay, is not going to show up for your traffic ticket. And remember, if the police officer who is the star witness against you does not show up for the court date, your case is automatically dismissed. Even if there are radar readings or a video or photos, it doesn't matter. The state or the prosecutor must have the police officer that wrote you the ticket present in court in order to introduce the evidence against you. Without a police officer, the case is automatically dismissed. Now, let's assume that you've done everything that you can to delay and you've gotten the last court date you can possibly get, and then you show up on that day and the police officer is there. That's okay. There's still hope for you to avoid the ticket. And here's what you need to do. As soon as you see the police officer show up, or you see his name signed on the witness log, then you go up to the prosecutor. Don't go up to the judge. Go up to the prosecutor, go to his office, which is usually in the same court, and ask to talk to him. And ask him if he can make you some kind of a plea deal. An example of that would be, let's say the police officer gave you 3 citations, one for speeding, one for no seatbelt, and safe change of lane. Then you ask the prosecutor if you would plead guilty to one in exchange for him dismissing the other 2. That's an example of a plea deal. Now make sure that whichever one you choose to plead guilty for, make sure that it's a non-moving violation. So in the example that I gave, when you have an unsafe change of lane, no seatbelt, and speeding, the non-moving violation would be the no seatbelt. So make sure you plead guilty for that, because when you plead guilty for a non-moving violation, it is unlikely that it would affect your insurance premiums. So you get to get out of this ticket, make a deal, but it would not cause your insurance premiums, unlikely that it would cause your insurance premiums to go up. There are also some states, like the state of Texas, where each violation you plead guilty for is going to cause you to incur a point against your driver's license. And ultimately, if you have enough points, if you accumulated enough violations, you'll be denied to be renewed your license. Obviously, you don't want to do that. And in some states, no seatbelt does not incur a negative point on your driving record. Okay, if for some reason the option of making a deal with the prosecutor is not successful or not available, you still have other options. When you're called, when your name is called to make sure you're present before trial, then you go up to the prosecutor or the judge and you ask if you could have deferred adjudication. If deferred adjudication is available in your state, go ahead and opt for that. What is deferred adjudication? Deferred adjudication is basically the court will give you a duration. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months. Most likely it's 6 months, during which you cannot get convicted of a traffic citation. You cannot get a traffic citation and be convicted for it. Now remember, I said convicted of a traffic citation. So let's say you opt for deferred adjudication and during the 6 month you are given a ticket again. That still doesn't count because it's not a conviction. Just make sure that that ticket, the new ticket, the court date for it happens sometime in the future after the expiration of the 6 month deferred adjudication. And if you go through those 6 months without a conviction of a traffic violation, then your original ticket is automatically dismissed. The last option you have is called defensive driving, which most people are familiar with. You basically are given the chance to go online and take a course. You can do it online or you can do it in person. It's much more convenient to do it online, and you go through the course. It usually takes about 5 or 6 hours, and then you take a small test. Once you pass, you're given a certificate of completion of the safety court. If you take that certificate and present it to the court, and then you have to pay some fees, court fees. Once you do all that, then the original ticket is automatically dismissed. The worst case scenario is if you go to trial, the police officer showed up, now you're convicted and you have to pay. Then you can ask the court for some time to pay the fine, perhaps a payment plan that the court can grant you if you don't have the money to pay for the citation immediately. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you find it helpful, please hit the thumbs up, consider subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.